In the United States, the two candidates vying for the vice presidency have sparred over the coronavirus and other contentious issues. Republican vice presidential candidate Mike Pence and Democratic challenger Kamala Harris clashing over the Trump administration's response to the pandemic, with Harris hammering on the coronavirus task force now in the White House. Other hot-button issues, the position open for the Supreme Court justice's seat and abortion, as well as the ongoing unrest in American cities. Joining us now for analysis is correspondent Stefan Simons in Washington and Stacey Bivens from our U.S. election team here in the studio. Good day to both of you. Stacey, a very different debate than the one we saw just last week. Were these two candidates able to convince the public of their positions, and what was your impression of their performance?
Well, this was definitely a more civilized debate, easier to understand, easier to follow. The first was like kids on a playground running around on a sugar high. And this one, both of the candidates were able to lay out their points of view clearly. I think that if you were a supporter of the Biden-Harris campaign, you saw what you wanted to see. You wanted to see Kamala Harris put Pence's feet to the fire when it comes to the coronavirus. And no matter how he tried to pivot, and he is a really good debater, and he has that, oh, shucks, Midwestern charm, but she kept going back to that. And if you are a supporter of Trump-Pence, you are glad that he mentioned some things that made her seem like she would be a little bit more of an extremist with more leftist views.
Okay, Stefan, going over to Washington now, so much of the lead up to this debate was dominated by the president's health. Was Vice President Pence able to convince the public that Donald Trump is in fact fit and back at work at full speed?
I think he didn't have to because Kamala Harris didn't go for that point. She made this a larger point, as Stacey pointed out, coronavirus and the disastrous, in her mind, and that's how she tried to show it and to paint this, in her mind, the disastrous performance of the Trump administration, culminating now with the president being sick and saying his sickness is a blessing from God. Just today. Anyhow, so the Vice President Pence didn't have to actually pivot a lot or dodge a lot of questions in terms of what is your president thinking, or how bad is he how badly sick is he really, and how is your information politics in the White House. That wasn't necessary because Kamala Harris went straight to the jugular, so to speak, and as we heard in the soundbite before we started this conversation here, telling the American people that they have witnessed the most disastrous failure of an administration in history by handling and how this administration handled this coronavirus disaster or crisis here in the United States.
Kamala Harris certainly didn't mince any of her words when criticizing the president's handling of the pandemic, as you mentioned. Let's take a listen to her and Pence's response there.
The American people have witnessed what is the greatest failure of any presidential administration in the history of our country. And here are the facts. 210,000 dead people in our country in just the last several months. Over 7 million people who have contracted this disease. 1 in 5 businesses closed. We're looking at frontline workers who have been treated like sacrificial workers.
From the very first day, President Donald Trump has put the health of America first. Before, there were more than 5 cases in the United States, all people who had returned from China. President Donald Trump did what no other American president had ever done, and that was he suspended all travel from China, the second largest economy in the world.
Stefan, more attention than usual on this VP debate because both candidates have to sell their fitness to potentially take over the top job if either of the presidential candidates should be capacitated, should they be in office, either due to ill health or old age. Trump is 74, Biden's 77. Did they make their cases that they're presidential material?
I would say they both made sure that everybody understands their presidential material. However, they dodged any direct question in this regard because, of course, they have a job to serve and a boss to serve. In the case of Mike Pence, it's Donald Trump, and for Kamala Harris, it's going to be Joe Biden, hopefully so. She hopes, at least so. So I think Kamala Harris was a bit more reserved in making this point, again, and not directly answering this, but using her opportunity to actually introduce herself to the American people again, because don't forget, this is a historic vice presidential debate. It is the first time that you have a woman of color on this stage. And she is also the youngest, or was the youngest on the stage. She's younger than Vice President Pence. So she used this opportunity to introduce herself again to America with her resume, talking about herself and what she did in her past years as senator, as general attorney in California, and so on. Vice President Pence didn't have to do much there. I think everybody who knows him in the last 4 years and before as governor is pretty much convinced that he would be, if need be, presidential enough to fill out the shoes of a presidency.
Okay, Pence certainly has, Stacey, a lot more experience debating. Kamala Harris, this is her second big opportunity to present herself to the American public after the primary debate, interestingly, against Joe Biden. Yes. What was your opinion in terms of their presidential material? You know, who are they for the American public? Did they get that across in terms of their substance, their character, and their take on the top issues?
I think that they both did well in presenting themselves. And Kamala Harris had the extra weight of being a strong woman, handling her business, but also not being so aggressive. Stefan mentioned that she wasn't as aggressive as she might have been able to be because she didn't want to come across as the angry black woman. And when you are in situations where you are competing for something that matters to you and you don't want to turn people off, like in this election, she doesn't want to turn off white voters that are probably on the fence or women voters. So she was careful in how she presented herself. And I get the impression that Pence was a little less careful. He didn't mind over-talking her, over-talking Susan Page, the moderator. And I don't believe that that will help him in the pursuit to get more suburban women to vote.
In terms of presenting herself to the public, before going on air, Google search show Kamala Harris is trending in terms of searches to find out who she is. This is very important for her, this debate, in terms of presenting herself to all those undecided voters you were talking about.
Yeah, this is really crucial because like I said, the Trump-Pence campaign was looking to make her seem like a radical. Be careful, because if you vote for her, look, he's 77 years old. This could be dangerous. What kind of a direction will she take the country? What will she do to the Supreme Court? Will she pack the Supreme Court? So she really had to take the time to introduce herself, to show that she is presidential and that she has core values.
One of the issues Kamala Harris has really been taken to task for by conservatives and undecided voters, as well as her stand on abortion, Roe v. Wade, a big supporter of that in California. That is going to be one of the big issues for the undecided voters, the position that both these candidates have on Roe v. Wade. Let's take a listen on that.
Let the American people fill that seat in the White House, and then we'll fill that seat on the United States Supreme Court. And to your point, Susan, the issues before us couldn't be more serious. There's the issue of choice, and I will always fight for a woman's right to make a decision about her own body. It should be her decision and not that of Donald Trump and the Vice President, Michael.
I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for it. And this is another one of those cases where there's such a dramatic contrast. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris support taxpayer funding of abortion all the way up to the moment of birth, late-term abortion. They want to increase funding to Planned Parenthood of America. Now, for our part, I would never presume how Judge Amy Coney Barrett would rule on the Supreme Court of the United States, but we'll continue to stand strong for the right to life.
Stacey, the right to life, abortion, very big issues once again in this cycle, this election cycle. What's driving that?
Well, Trump's base is what's driving it. He's not really trying to build, he's just trying to get his base to come out and vote. And he has a strong evangelical following, and a lot of them are single-issue voters, and that single issue that matters the most to them is abortion. And they appreciate that he's trying to push along the Supreme Court nominee. And it's disingenuous for Pence to say that he doesn't know how she would vote on this issue. She says that Roe v. Wade is the law of the land, but also she supports legislation that would hollow it out. And this is what evangelicals are glad to hear.
Stefan, let me ask a question to you about that. How much is abortion, how important is this in this election cycle? Is it mainly coronavirus, or is this shaping up to be one of the other top issues?
No, it's important. It's latently important for years, over years, for decades actually. Pro-life, pro-choice. There is not much wiggle room, and there's one position and the other position, and again, there's no compromising going on, and it's in the political debate for decades here, up and down like a roller coaster, more intense, less intense, and so on. For this election, it is an important topic, but it's not the most important topic. The most important topic, say the Democrats, is coronavirus. The Republicans and the Trump administration knows, yes, it is, because it was such a disaster, is such a disaster still on display and in the making. Still in the making. Let's not forget, this is the last 6 months here, and it's not over yet. The second wave and winter is coming, and flu is also upon us. Anyhow, but the other big issue is healthcare, and then, of course, abortion rights and the women's rights to decide about her bodies and about abortions. This is all in terms of healthcare, and healthcare is a major issue still here in the U.S. Not much in the press, but when you go out in the suburbs and out in the streets, healthcare is still a big thing. Unity of this country, or decisiveness in the country, coronavirus and healthcare, including abortion rights.
Stacey, let me pick up with you on the issue of unity in the country. Both sides have indicated there's a lot of concerns about this vote being legitimate, about vote counting, about the mail-in ballot, et cetera. How important is that?
Well, it's crucial, and I think that the president has done a poor job of making people feel comfortable that their votes will be counted. And again, pressing that if he does not win, then it's rigged, and so he's willing to fight to the Supreme Court. Will that suppress the vote? We're going to have to wait and see.
Okay, mail-in ballots also being very important.
Absolutely.
In the cycle. Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. Stacey, thanks so very much to you. Stefan Simons in Washington, thanks so much to you as well.